Hello! Today is October 5th of animation How Does It Work? How It Work. And I spent a couple of days in September figuring out which movie I was going to do and trying to figure out what tools I was going to use for that. And here it is, October 5th, day 7 of this, and it's time for me to actually start putting together the first sequence of Rainbow Dash coming on screen and then blurring out prior to the second sequence coming in. And the pieces that I have for that include the contrails and um, Rainbow Dash. So I've opened up all of the frames all of the scans I've made, all my hand-drawn frames into Photoshop. Right now they're all kind of large. If I just copy the background, for example, it's 2300 pixels by 1400 pixels at 300 dpi. I like working at 300 dpi because it gives me a lot smoother line, and then when I go back to 72 dpi, I'm just a lot happier with the result. And I want to have a template area that I'm working in here that's large enough that I can move the frames around in. The scan, when I scanned, I wasn't really careful to make sure that everything was lined up. And my assumption is that once I get into Photoshop, I will be doing all the registration. Then once the entire sequence is registered, I will crop it so everything has exactly the same size and shape and everything is registered just based on its boundaries. I'll reduce that whole image to 72 dpi, and then I will work with the frames. I've also decided that instead of trying to do transitions, wipes, in any other tool, I'm going to actually do the wipes inside Photoshop. So for example, where I've got a blur wipe, where Rainbow Dash is blurring out and the three ponies flying above her are blurring in, I'm just going to use Photoshop to reduce the opacity of the foreground scene. That means I'm going to have to um, kind of cut out the backgrounds in some of these scans, and I'm not sure what challenges I'm going to see with that, but that's my plan right now, is to, rather than trying to learn the technique of doing those kinds of wipes in other tools like iMovie or something like that, I think it's easier for me just to work with the direct frames. So that's my theory for now. Next time I do that, then I might get into more wipes and things like that. So I'm just going to start with a working area that's 3000 pixels by, let's say, 1600 pixels. That should be big enough for the whole thing. And happily, using the Arrange Tile tool gives me this nice layout, and happily I can see the frame number that I've drawn in the upper right hand corner of each. So here's my background. That'll be frame nothing, and we'll just call that background. Oh, I know there is a background inside Photoshop, but that's not what I mean. I mean something better. So here we are, frame something. Must be frame 1. Paste in frame 1. And, oh, okay, we've got our contrail. I'm going to make this a multiply so I can see the background through it. And this is my contrail. My contrail is going to fade out in 10 frames. And so I might be doing a little bit more work with blending that in. But first, so I want my contrail to fit into the background. First, let me just go through and get everything lined up. So I've just copied frame 10. Come on, get my contrail lined up. I want to get those registration marks, the upper, in all the 4 corners lined up. I think that's pretty good. You can see they don't actually line up. It's a problem. But I need to get them at least as close as I can. Now that's very interesting. Frame 10 is way the heck bigger than those other frames. Let's see what frame 12 is doing. Frame 12 is as big as frame 10. So my Rainbow Dash frames are much, much bigger than my other frames. Oh, okay, well, here's a solution for that. Frame 10 and layer 12. That's frame 12. So let's take my contrail, use the transform tool, this window a little bit bigger so I can grab the edges of that image. And with a Shift Option drag, I'm going to drag those reg marks until they correspond or at least close to the reg marks for the rainbow dash. And if I just use an option drag, that scales everything from the center. There we are. Accept that transformation, and then I'm going to do the same thing for the background. Command T, and then an option drag, and it will scale it proportionally from the center. There we are. Now, you might be asking, how am I going to actually make use of those contrails with the background with Rainbow Dash? Well, let me show you that. So here's my contrail. I turn off multiply. And if I use the selection wand, I've just selected the background. Oops, oops, oops. Although I do see a problem that this box is not bounded. That's a problem. I need to not have that kind of nonsense going on. So I'm going to grab this, go into New, File, paste it, and move things up so that they're right up against the top, so that now my select tool, my wand, clone, there. Now the clouds are solid objects. I've selected the background. I hit backspace, select all, copy, come back in here, undo that marquee, and then get those suckers lined up. V tool to align them, a little to the right, a little up, left, a little up. Now I have actual contrails that blot out the background. If I grab Rainbow Dash and put her behind, actually there's not enough for there. Here she's in front, but if I move her behind that contrail, then you can see Rainbow Dash is behind the contrail. She's going to actually be in front, but what I'm trying to show is that this is how I can make the foreground, actual foreground, in front of the things that are behind. For lining up, I'm going to be just using everything as a multiply layer so that I can line stuff up. Once I've cropped it, I will go back through layer by layer and delete out the backgrounds of each layer so that only the character is there, so that then that character overlays the background and the contrail. So this is my cropped, cleaned contrail. Contrail clean. Let's call contrail clean. So the contrail is kind of ugly. It's making it difficult to see what I'm doing. I'm going to get rid of the background, but I'll leave my rainbow dashes in. And now I've done frame 12. So from here on out, it's just paste the rainbow dash, make her a multiply layer, get her in the right order. Frame 12, frame 14, and V to align her. Close enough. And then I'm just going to be doing close enough, pasting her in here, and doing that for many, many more frames. So I'll be back in a moment when I've got most of those frames loaded. Hi, okay, so I'm back. I've loaded all my frames into Photoshop. They're all on a filter of multiply, which means that every layer is showing only dark stuff. They're only making things darker. They're showing everything that's behind them. And here I've got every single thing. It's interesting that the background seems to be completely blocked out. Oh, the contrail itself was not on multiply. There we go. So there we go. There's everything, every single thing, all the way from Rainbow Dash coming in, rising up, singing a little bit of a song, and then fading out. And the way that I faded her out was that I took frame 46, multiplied it as frame 48, reduced it to a 75% opacity. Frame 50 is a 50%. Frame 52 is a 25%. So I'm not going to bother to animate those frames because she's fading out, and I'm going to be fading in the three ponies flying over her, and so that's how I'm going to do that transition. I've been wondering very much about whether or not I want to go to the effort of trying to get the background in frame here. I think for right now what I'm going to do is take the very next step. I've saved this, and now I'm going to crop this so that I get my working surface, so that I get the movie that I'm trying to make. And I think the movie I'm trying to make is mostly here. Go down there so that I don't get anything off the top of those clouds in the contrail, and I want to not be too far below the bottom of any drawing of Rainbow Dash. So I think I'm going to go something a little bit more like this. Probably going to be a little bit smaller than the actual area of the movie that I'm trying to recreate, but by having all of my lines that are at the edge of a frame go right off the edge of the frame, that makes selection a lot easier. And then thanks to the power of Photoshop, all I have to do is image, crop, and now I've just guillotined every single one of my frames to be exactly the size that I'm looking for. So I'm done with that. I'm going to save this now as sequence 1 cropped. Cropped. And my next task is to integrate the background with all these frames. There's two ways of doing that. I could go through and erase everything off the background that is a place where Rainbow Dash might show her head. Or I can turn off every frame of Rainbow Dash and then one by one go through, and instead of having the frame be a multiply, actually use the selection tool, the wand, to remove all of the background on the Rainbow Dash frame, like so. Okay, grab the selection wand. Oh, see, she's a little bit off the top there. So if I use the selection tool, fine. Use the selection tool on that layer. Let me go right around, and I'm gonna basically screw up what I'm trying to do. But I think actually for this one I'm okay because her ear isn't blocking anything that's behind, so that frame's okay. Now we're in trouble. Frame 10. Now we have to get rid of that background. Oop! I haven't selected frame 10, so we'll start looking at frame 10. 12. Select that background. Oop! And see, I haven't quite cropped enough. So what I'm going to do is turn on frame 10, select the whole file, and move that marquee up there and recrop my image. I'm losing some Rainbow Dash, admittedly, but I'm making it possible. Let's see, I'm still got some holes here. Okay, so I am going to have to go through each of these frames and figure out why I can't do this and end up with a selection that doesn't grab inside any of those character outlines. So I'm going to do that for a while. Be back in a moment. Okay, I'm back for a little bit here. I'm still trying to close off all my holes, and just to show you, this is all it takes. That little gap right there, not sure you can see the pointer. Use this pointer. Right there, that's all the gap that it takes for the wand to see something tasty. I'm going to fill that with a pencil color and just a little thin line. Now if I want, now if I want select outside, zoom back out, a little bit more. Let's see, is that enough? Yeah, that's enough. A little bit more, there we go. And I hit backspace. Now, when I turn on my clean contrail and make that layer normal, not multiply. Now rainbow dash is in front of the contrail, and rainbow dash is in front of the background. So this is what I'm now going to do with every single one of these frames, is to get rainbow dash in front of the contrail and in front of the background. And I don't have to do that very long, for very far, because the contrail fades out. And I think what I'm going to do for now is simply have the contrail fade as using the opacity tool to fade that out in, let's say, 6 or 8 frames, just so that I have done respect to that without having to actually redraw all the contrail. Because right now, I don't want to draw clouds. I want to draw rainbow dash. So I'm going to do those two things. Be right back. Okay, things are actually going fairly quickly here. Just thought I'd do a couple of these so you can see them and get an idea of what that looks like. So I go to frame 30. It's still multiply. I make it normal. Select. I'm not getting anything inside the character that I don't want. Hit backspace. I'm okay. Frame 32. Make it a normal. Select the new frame. Still doing good. Backspace. Frame 34. Make it normal. She moved a big jump there. This is going to be very interesting to see what this looks like animated in the actual movie, because, man, she moves in that frame. And then here, okay, I'm going to have trouble with this one. I can already see. Yep. Okay, so I grab the brush tool. I think my problem is up here above her ear. And I go back to the wand. Yep, that's okay. Made it. Frame 38. Make it normal. She ducks back down a little bit. Well, I thought I was going to have trouble, but I didn't. Now, there's a bit of a problem here with her eyelashes being interpreted as something that, defines her physical being. But I really don't expect to see stars and contrails showing up between her eyelashes and, her hair. So I'm okay that that's not getting cut. Oh, there's something going on down here I have to fix. Looks like right there. When you're actually drawing this stuff, making the outer edge of the figure complete, and anything that you have to be able to select to do fills is important. And I have not been worrying about that very much because I expect to color this by hand. I'm going to be doing some watercoloring and working with markers and stuff like that. So I expect to be able to figure out with my human eye what each piece of her body is as far as color is concerned. So I'm not worried about getting this with an automated tool or with Photoshop. Gosh, I'm using what do you call it? Precise cursors. Is that what it's called? Here, I cannot see. Let's try standard, so I can at least see where I'm working. There we go. Oh, that's awful. Oh, I hate that. It's evil. But it works. I can at least see where I'm working. When you're working with 1 pixel on some, this is a rather large monitor. It gets kind of difficult to see what you're doing. Okay. Yay! I thought that little gap up there by her ear again was going to be a problem, but apparently not so much in this case. Normal. And here we are working in the starting to work in the fade out. So, and again, we don't need that to be a multiply. I don't need to reselect because I just copied that last frame. So I'll just go to each one of these and delete. There we are. Okay, now I have the complete sequence done so that I am able to see the background and have the foreground figure rainbow dash on top of it. Looks so nice. And just gonna turn these layers off one by one, work my way back down. All looks very slow and painful at this point, and gosh, it kind of is. There we are, and now the next trick will be to take those contrails and to fade them out. So I'm going to duplicate contrails just by grabbing it, making a copy of it, and for now I'm going to throw it in between every other frame, and we'll delete a few clouds per frame so that they slowly go away. And I'll just do that with the eraser tool. Grab the eraser. Turn off the other contrail. And in this case, I really want to see the actual tool, so I'm going to have to go back to Preferences, Displays and Cursors, show me the actual brush size. Thank you. There. So that cloud goes away. And I'm just going to slowly start deleting out a few of these contrails every frame until in the end there's no contrails left. It's just the stars in the background, and then that's going to be how I'll do this. If once I actually see it in the animation, it's just terrible and awful, and I can't stand it. Well, then I will actually go through and draw myself some contrails. So I'll be back in a minute so you can see how that looks. Okay, I've made some contrails, and so here's contrails, all of them, and then slowly the contrails fade away. Thought, not seeing them fade away. Why am I? Oh, because I have to hit that very first one. I missed one. Sorry. I love making mistakes. So we go down here. There's my first contrail, and they slowly start fading out until there's none. And so that's going to be how I'm going to handle the contrails for now. Just get them going. For the background, I feel like the background should have some color to it. So I think what I'm going to probably do is just say, let's grab the background and take off the white space and just leave the white dots. There, I've got my white dots. And let's just make that background, ooh, this is a grayscale. This is all grayscale, so how do I make that not a grayscale? I will have to convert this whole thing into an RGB. Sure, let's do it. Don't flatten, because that's the whole purpose, is to make this thing not flat. So we're going to convert this to an RGB. My file just got 3 times as large. That'll be fun. So now we're looking at a 163 megabyte file. I love working with big files. Big files is fun. So now let's see what a nice night color is. I think they use a lot of purple in My Little Pony for backgrounds. And a nice light blue, sky blue, cerulean blue. And let's give ourselves, oh, gollies, a bleed, a nice gradient of, where's my gradient tool? There's my gradient tool. Let's give myself a gradient from and to. The simplest way to do it is just do that. Yeah, I'm a huge fan. There's our night sky. There's our nice night sky. There, okay, and then I think that's a little bit strong, so we'll make that a layer that isn't locked, and let's kind of make it a little bit more opaque. We'll go into the background itself, and we'll backspace that out. Oh, of course you're going to make that a blue. Let's make you white. Then do we? There we go. There we've got a nice kind of blendy, very pastel purple. A little bit heavier, perhaps. Don't want to be too heavy. Although, you know, for what I'm doing, that's actually not bad. And then I could just go with a new layer, give myself a good horizon. That isn't what I wanted. Let's rotate that. With the horizontal. Well, that's not what I want. Whoa, 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 whoa. What did I just do? Let's rotate that 180 degrees. Trying to get a little bit more of a dark night sky up there. Transformation. That might be okay. There. I think that's going to be okay. I kind of like having a little bit of dark on the low horizon as well. Let's go with something like that. So then we add in our contrails. Oops, that's not our clean contrail. There's our clean contrail, and there's Rainbow Dash coming up. And she comes on stage. Oh, we've got some really interesting stuff happening in the background where we had some not white on the sides. That's amusing. That's very amusing. So I might end up cropping this whole thing just ever so slightly more so that I bring in the left and right side a little bit, get rid of some of that garbage that's happening out there. So here's our frames, and we're going to start compositing. And as you can see, frame 10, we've got to get Rainbow Dash to actually... No, so we've got to fix some stuff there. We've got to fix that little thing. So now I'm going to go through and start compositing my frames one by one. Just a second. Welcome back. Okay, and now I'm ready to start compositing my frames. So here I have my background, off and on. I have contrails, and I have Rainbow Dash coming on stage. And she starts at frame 10, so I'm going to save for web. Oh, wait. Made one mistake. I'm still working at 300 dpi. These files are going to be insanely huge. So as soon as Photoshop will let me cancel, hello, little kitten. I have a cat that's hungry and would like to eat and wants to knock everything off my desk. So, Photoshop, please let me cancel. Oh, please let me cancel, Photoshop. Please. Please. I beg of you. Escape. Altitude, altitude. Dive, dive. There, okay. Gonna save this. So I save all that work. And then I'm going to adjust the image size to be 72 frames, or 72 dpi. Okay. And then normally my image size should be, my image size is probably actually a little bit big still. Ooh, I made it really small. So what's a normal movie size? 540 by something something? Let's go to Google. Hey Google, my buddy, what is a normal movie size? I think one of the dimensions is 540. And Google tells me that the answer is, long time coming. Wait, now everything's going to be slow. Is that where we're at? Everything's going to be slow now. Um, 640 by something. 640 by 480. So what's smaller than 640 by 480? Is there anything else that has 540 in it? Yeah, 540 by 405. So let's make it 540 by 405. And I believe if we say image size is going to be 540, oh, that makes it too small because apparently I'm working widescreen or something. You know what? Giving up on that. Sorry. I know that, like I said, this is kind of learning as I go, but let's just kind of work with what we've got and see how far we can get then. Okay, giving up on that idea completely. We're just going to say for web, we're at 72 dots per inch. Here's my frame 10. So we save frame 10. Okay. Saving frame 10. I turn off this frame. I bring up the frame 12, and I save for web frame 12. Yes, kitten. And then I just proceed to continue to grab the new contrail and the new frame, save for web, frame 14. And then I'm just going to work through the rest of them this way. This is pretty much it for today. The next thing I'm going to do is, following exactly the same technique I used last time, I'm going to composite these into Flash and make a movie of it. And so I'm going to finish doing this work here, and I'll make the movie, and I'll post these two things online as soon as I can. Talk to you later. Have fun.